Approaching Halloween night, Peter, while dozing off in the middle of the night, disturbed by mysterious sounds coming from the bedroom wall. Curiously, he tries to approach the source of the sound, pressing his ear against the wall, but hears nothing. After knocking on the wall 3 times, he receives a reply of knocks that make him very frightened. Waking up his mother, Carol, Peter tells her about the mysterious knocking he heard. Carol investigates by pressing her ear to the wall, but no sound is heard. Comforting her son, Carol says that the noises could be due to the old age of the house. The next day, Peter goes to school, still remembering the mysterious sounds from last night. At school, Peter becomes the target of his friends' teasing, with Brian even intentionally throwing paper at him. Despite being teased by his friends, Peter chooses to remain silent. On that day, a new teacher, Devin, arrives and begins her lesson. During break time, Peter chooses to stay inside the classroom, while the teacher notices that Peter is being avoided by his friends. An unexpected incident occurs when Peter finds a spider, and Devin promptly helps to dispose of it. Later that night, during dinner, Peter begs his parents for permission to join the Halloween celebration, a request they had previously denied. Mark, his father, and his mother reluctantly explain that their decision to forbid Peter is related to a tragic incident in the past, where a little girl went missing during Halloween. So Peter reluctantly accepts their decision. Returning to his room to sleep, Peter carefully checks the walls, but finds nothing suspicious. Suddenly, the wall moves, and the voice of a little girl calls his name clearly, startling him and making him scream. Mark checks Peter's room, trying to listen to the sound Peter heard, but finds nothing, suggesting it might be caused by mice. The next day, Peter is asked by his father to fetch cinnamon-scented rat poison. His father explains that the poison is laced with cinnamon scent to attract the mice to consume it and ultimately die due to the chemical reaction. During art class at school, Devin notices something strange, Peter drawing his room with the addition of the words "help me," piquing her curiosity, so she decides to visit Peter's house. After school, Devin asks Carol about Peter's condition, and Carol sees the drawing that angers her, leaving Devin with her emotions. Carol questions Peter about the meaning of the drawing, to which he answers nonchalantly. But Carol still scolds him because the drawing gives the impression that Peter feels threatened in his own home. She then asks Peter to stop imagining ghosts. Later that night, Peter hears the voice of the little girl calling him again. But this time Peter dares to respond because he's convinced it's just his imagination. The girl offers to leave if Peter wants, but Peter asks her to stay. The next day at school, while making Halloween crafts, Brian feels jealous because Peter's pumpkin is better, so he pushes Peter, causing him to fall and ruin his work. Peter cries and confides in the girl in his imagination. The girl urges Peter to fight back so Brian won't bother him again. The next day, Peter glares at Brian with hatred, plotting something in his mind. On the way home from school, Peter follows Brian, who is walking alone, pushing him until his leg is injured while crossing the stairs. As a result, Peter is expelled from school, triggering his father's anger, who punishes him by locking him under the shed. His mother couldn't do anything. When Mark opens the shed door behind the fridge, he thinks it's for Peter's own good too. They leave Peter there, and in the silence, he calls the girl in his imagination, but there's no response. The next day, he wakes up and finds a chain that piques Peter's curiosity. Peter investigates the chain and finds a creepy doll in a hole covered by bars 5 meters deep. Meanwhile, the principal reprimands Devin for her visit to Peter's house at that time. Devin is told that Peter's family is famously odd, especially because of a case involving the disappearance of a little girl in that house. The news about the little girl worries Devin about Peter's condition. She writes her phone number on Peter's exam paper, which is returned to Carol with the excuse that it's Peter's last exam result that hasn't been submitted. Although Carol is not pleased with Devin's visit, Mark welcomes her and invites her for a quick coffee. She sees Mark holding a hammer, who explains he's doing some repairs. Mark's hand is injured. He explains to Devin that the wound is from a scrape on the board. Devin asks Carol about Peter, causing a misunderstanding. Carol requests not to interfere with her personal affairs. Although it seems odd, Devin only inquires about Peter's well-being and as if Carol is hiding something. Mark tries to calm down Carol, who continues to feel annoyed. Peter hears the commotion and screams for help from the shed door. Although Devin hears, the sound of the washing machine makes her hesitant. Devin asks Mark for permission to leave, holding back her fear. Upon reaching the car, Mark surprisingly hands Devin the car keys she left behind. Mark's appearance handing over the car keys creates a tense atmosphere. That night, Carol brings cake for Peter with a big smile.
Pumpkin.
Peter is bathed after the punishment, and his relationship with his father improves. He no longer sleeps in the shed, but is escorted to his room by both of his parents. In the middle of the night, he calls the girl again and they talk. Peter wants to see the girl, and he's guided to the hole behind the wall. Seeing the eyes that appear, he's surprised and questions the reality of the girl. Turns out the girl is Peter's older sister. A shock to Peter upon this revelation. His sister explains that she has been waiting for years for Peter to grow up so he could help her get out of there. She also reveals their parents' evil plan to execute Peter. Peter chooses to ignore it and go back to sleep. But a few minutes later, his door opens and he sees his mother passing by. When calling out for his parents, they suddenly appear with strange behavior, making him scared. It turns out it's just a dream. His mother asks about his dream, but Peter chooses to keep it a secret. On the following night, they reconnect. The girl claims that their parents have harmed a little girl, but Peter doubts its truthfulness. To prove it, the girl asks Peter to dig in the garden because there, a girl's body is buried by their parents. The next morning, Peter checks the garden for evidence. Meanwhile, his mother emerges from the hidden room behind the grandfather clock carrying drinks. Unexpectedly, Peter finds the skull of the girl and quickly covers it before his mother sees.
Maybe we could carve a pumpkin.
Back in his room, Peter is convinced of his sister's truth and plans to free her from captivity. He opens Devin's exam paper containing a phone number, secretly calling her for help while occasionally checking outside. Suddenly, Peter is caught by his mother, and Carol immediately checks whom he contacted. Carol tells Devin that Peter was just prank calling, and quickly hangs up her phone. Peter is forced into his room and unexpectedly, his mother finds a hole in the wall. His mother panics and asks about what the girl said. Her behavior indicating the girl's existence is indeed real. Then Peter is locked in his room. That night, Peter grows suspicious listening to his parents' conversation, and when they notice him, he quickly retreats to his room with heightened anxiety. The next day, Peter's father asks for Peter's help to dig a large hole in the garden to bury rotten pumpkins. Peter hesitates and suspects the hole for burying himself. As Halloween night arrives, They both sit at the dining table enjoying hot soup. Here, Carol gets disturbed and bangs the table as kids knock on their door for Halloween. Although Peter can't join in Halloween celebrations like the others and is forced to stay home, his father comments that the cinnamon scent in the soup is very appetizing. They both eagerly devour the soup until it's gone, while Peter doesn't taste it. This makes his father suspicious, sensing something unusual in his body. Turns out, Peter has put rat poison in the soup. His mother is bewildered by the situation. Mark asks Carol to immediately call the hospital, but it turns out the phone is not working. A few moments later, the poison starts to take effect, causing Mark to vomit blood. Carol, witnessing the incident, grabs a knife and chases Peter, but the poison has already taken effect, causing her to stumble down the stairs, and the knife she carries plunges into her abdomen. In a weakened state, his mother warns Peter not to open the room, but he still does, moving the grandfather clock and opening the hidden door. The girl starts emerging from the room with her long hair. Terrifying Peter, he runs to his room and locks the door while the girl moves her parents' bodies. Brian and his 3 masked friends come for revenge. They enter the open house and search for Peter hiding in his room, combing through every room carefully. They vandalize the items in the house brutally, unexpectedly. Brian slips in the pool of blood on the floor, exposing Peter. That's when the girl begins attacking the youths in a horrifying manner. The house door mysteriously closes shut, and Brian watches his friends being viciously attacked by the girl before he himself becomes a victim. After all his friends have been vanquished, Peter, hiding under the bed, is captured and locked in the previous room. Meanwhile, Devin decided to rescue Peter by going to his house. In the silence round the house, Devin entered the open house and headed to the dining room. Suddenly, she was attacked by the girl with sharp claws. Bravely, she grabbed an iron rod and began to explore each room. Upon reaching Peter's room, she heard Peter's voice from behind the wall, then locked the door. The girl, unable to enter, immediately ran to another door towards Peter, while Devin tried to break through the wall to rescue Peter. They tried to escape from the house, but Peter was caught. Then the girl imprisoned Peter in a deep hole in the shed, where Peter saw a doll named Sarah, the girl's name. The girl approached Peter to show her true face, explaining that it was her deformity that led their parents to confine her. Shortly after, Devin decided to re-enter and rescue Peter, but she was attacked by the girl. Peter helped by pulling her hair, causing her to fall, and Devin beat her until she fell into the hole. Then Peter locked her in. Although she was trapped, she said she would always haunt Peter as if she were free, and the movie ended.